Hey, what's up everybody and welcome to the channel. Today I'm covering Prot Paladin for Wrath Classic. Gonna be going through our talents, our glyphing in our 868 rotation. First off, starting off with our protection tree, we're going to go 51 to pick up Hammer of the Righteous, 20 points into Retribution. Some of these points are variable points that we can move around, specifically within these last two rows. First, we'll cover the protection tree, 51 points, so we can go ahead and pick up Hammer of the Righteous. 20 points into Retribution. Some of these talents are going to be our variable talents depending on your role. First talent to go into is Divine Strength. Increases your total strength by 15%. This is going to directly synergize with our Touch by the Light. Increases your spell power by an amount equal to 60% of your strength. So 15% increased strength over here means just a bit more spell power from Touch by the Light. Next up, we do pick up Anticipation. I want to cover Divinity real quick. This talent we don't pick up is only for our healing. As a Prot Paladin, you're not going to be healing, so Divinity is just going to be wasted talents. You could pick up Guardian's Favor if you like, which does reduce our Hand of Protection and our Hand of Freedom, but I see it more of a PvP talent, or if you really need it, then I guess you can pick it up, but for the most part, I don't. There's also Stoicism, which is just a stun reduction, also more of a PvP effect. So we're not going to be going into that. So Anticipation, 5 out of 5. Increases our dodge by 5%, direct mitigation talent. Next up, we want to pick up Divine Sacrifice. Do know that the base Divine Sacrifice spell only affects our party. It reduces all damage taken by party members within 30 yards by 30%, up to 40% of the Paladin's health. It becomes really OP once we actually pick up Divine Guardian, which affects the raid members within 30 yards, reducing damage by 20%. This also increases our duration of Sacred Shield by 100% and amount of sword by 20%. Sacred Shield we don't get until level 80. So for the most part, while leveling, you could just go one into Divine Sacrifice because you're only going to really be doing dungeons. You're not going to be doing raids while leveling, so you can save your points for Divine Guardian later on. We don't pick up Hammer of Justice. This is just a cooldown reduction for Hammer of Justice. So, excuse me, we're not going to be picking that up. 3 out of 3 into improved Devotion aura. Increases our armor bonus. However, what we really like from this talent is that it increases amount healed by 6% when a party member is affected by one of your auras. So next up, Blessing of Sanctuary. Blessing of Sanctuary is one of the talents that I really love. I just got really excited for Blessing of Sanctuary right there. It is one of the underdog talents, I believe. I didn't see enough paladins using it in TBC. My raid put Blessing of Sanctuary on every tank. Sometimes we had 2 paladins in our raid, one just kind of chilling, and the other one putting up Blessing of Sanctuary, really depending on like how much trash, especially like in High Jaw, Blessing of Sanctuary was just phenomenal. However, in Wrath, it's even better. It increases stamina and strength by 10%. So every tank is going to want this. Every tank benefits from strength, whether you're a DK, whether even you're Feral Bear, whether you're the Prot Paladin, you're still gonna want that 10% stamina, and strength just means a little bit more block, which Prot Paladins are one of the best block tanks. One of our talents is going to directly synergize with not only our block rating but our block value. So definitely gonna be pick up Sanctuary. Most importantly, because we need to pick up Holy Shield. Increase our chance to block by 30%. If you've been playing Prot Paladin, you already know this talent as well. This is our bread and butter spell. This is gonna provide so much mitigation and deal a little bit of damage for threat. Skip these two for a moment there, but gonna be going back to this now. Sacred Duty increases your total stamina by 4% and reduces the cooldown of your Divine Shield and Divine Protection spells by 60%. It's pretty cool. The cooldown reduction is pretty cool. However, 4% stamina is going to be huge. The more stamina we pick up, the more stamina we're going to be getting from Sacred Duty. And then one-handed weapon specialization. If you're somewhere like a warrior, if you're probably maybe it's even a shaman, I do believe they've had this type of talent. You're probably going to be thinking it increases your damage or something with one-handed weapon specialization. I want to be clear, this is not what it does. Increases all damage you deal when a one-handed melee weapon is equipped by 10%. It doesn't matter what kind of weapon, as long as you can equip it, and as long as it's a one-handed weapon, all of your damage is increased by 10%. Not just your weapon damage, all damage. That's why we go 3 out of 3. I've seen some paladins pick up Reckoning. It's a questionable talent. At best for me, it's a questionable talent. It gives you a 2% chance of being hit by a damage attack for your next 4 swings to within 8 seconds to generate an additional attack. It's I see him pick it up, and it's a bit of wasted talent. It's not enough of a proc, and all those talent points could be going somewhere else. Next up, I only go 1 out of 2 into Spiritual Attunement, a passive ability that gives the paladin mana when healed by other friendly target spells. The amount of mana gain is equal to 5% of the amount healed. So only when other people are healing you. So you can't abuse this and just heal yourself up for more mana. It'd be kind of broken, especially if you can out heal the amount of mana they use. That would be broken. So of course that's fixed by only being affected by other incoming heals. I only go 1 out of 2 because we don't really suffer from mana problems. Maybe when you're leveling up through dungeons, you might suffer from mana problems. I know right now in the beta on the PTR, if you're lower level or leveling, if you have like some older gear, you still kind of have some mana issues. It's not until later on when you pick up a little bit more of more better gear, you start leveling out. You start leveling out the base percentages and everything. It becomes a little bit better. But for now, we're only going to be picking up 1 out of 2 once we're level 80. The next talent we're going to be picking up is Ardent Defender. This is the biggest talent in our tree. Honestly, I would have put that down to Shield Templar and just replaced it. Like, it's that good. Whenever we fall below 35% health, we have our damage. We have a damage reduction of 20%, and we are healed by a maximum amount of 30% of our health. This is based on defense. So the more defense that you have, the more you can heal. So if you're not defense capped, you're probably not gonna get that 30%. I'm not really sure where that cap is actually gonna be at, but I'm gonna assume that once you're defense cap, that means you get the maximum 30%. So still really good. No reason not to put 3 out of 3 into this talent. Next up, Redoubt. I did mention our block and our block rating synergizing. So Redoubt, this used to be up on top. It actually used to be the first talent in this placement right here before we went down into another talent. I forgot what that talent was. However, in Wrath, it still does about the same thing. It increases our block value by 30%, and damaging and range attacks against you have a 10% chance to increase your chance to block by 30%. Now, the block value by 30%, you might not think it's too big, especially since it just kind of like it's just the amount that you block from physical attack. However, one of our best spells that we pick up later on, Shield of Righteousness, does damage according to the amount of block value that you have, plus an additional 520. So when you have a big beefy shield with a lot of block value, this thing is gonna be hitting like a truck. And Redoubt just means that it increases our damage by 30%, more or less. So it almost means that we actually get a 30% damage increase to our Shield of Righteousness. I want to say Sacred Shield. I had 2 things in my head right now. It's probably not going to be exactly 30%, but huge numbers increased to our Shield of Righteousness just from one talent right there. Combat Expertise right here, increase your expertise by 6. Expertise is pretty good. It's basically mitigating our chance to get parried or get dodged. I'm not sure if it's, I think only hit means that, our chance to miss. We don't pick up too much expertise from our gear. We're still going to be picking up a fair amount earlier on. However, still 6 expertise it's nothing to scoff at. So you don't want to ignore this talent. Your total stamina and chance to critically hit by 6%. So that's more stam. That's more stam. We're getting 4% from Sacred Duty, and now we're getting another 6% from combat expertise. Touched by the Light, I did mention this before, increases our spell power by an amount equal to 60% of your total strength, and increases the amount healed by your critical heals by 30%. That second bit, not that important. I guess if you're for some reason needing to heal yourself, which if you do, your group is running into problems. The second part, not that great, but the first part, the more strength that we get, the more spell power that we have. We had in TBC, we had to get our spell power directly, not so much anymore. Now we can gear up more closer to how you would gear up, like say a warrior. Pick up your expertise, pick up your defense, pick up your block value, your block rating. This makes it so much easier and so much easier to actually have spell power and threat. Avenger Shield. This used to be a talent I would say not to pick up in TBC. In Wrath, we have to pick it up. It's now instant cast, and that was basically the biggest issue with Avengers Shield in TBC. It was a cast, it could get pushed back, and it just wasn't really worth picking up. You can just as easily just put that point into picking up Blessing of Kings, which honestly there would have been no reason not to pick up Blessing of Kings. So much now, you definitely want to pick it up because we also pick up Shield of the Templar that reduces all damage taken by 3% and grants your Avenger Shield a 100% chance to silence your targets for 3 seconds. Now, this one you could possibly just do one talent into it, reduces your all damage taken by 1%, but we're gonna want that 3%. As well as this is gonna help you to pull packs with casters in it. So you pull directly, just attacking the caster. The caster is gonna be silenced, that therefore it's gonna be coming towards you. That was a big issue with prior expansions with vanilla and TBC Classic. You just have to corner it just to bring in the casters. With this one, it's going to help you just pull it and still want to corner it when you can, just to bring them as close in. But this is going to go a long way to help you with that. The last talent, of course, we're going to be picking up is Hammer of the Righteous. This is going to be a bit of an AoE challenge. We were already great at AoE in TBC. Now we're even better in Wrath Classic. Attacks your current target and up to 2 additional targets, causing 4 times your main hand damage per second as holy damage. Now, let's go into Retribution. There are some other talents that we can pick up. I'm going to be going into Judgment of the Just in just a little bit. First talent that we go into Retribution is going to be Deflection. Increases our parry chance by 50%. Another talent just like Anticipation, where we just have a direct mitigation talent. There's no reason you shouldn't pick up. Benediction reduces the mana cost of all instant cast spells by 2%. There really isn't a non-instant spell that we cast as a prop paladin. There used to be Avenger Shield, but it's now instant. You're not going to be running into mana issues as a prop pally. If you are, then there's bigger issues than your mana going on. So no reason to pick up Benediction just for the mana reduction. Instead, we're going to be going into Improved Judgments, which decreases the cooldown of your Judgment spell by 2 seconds. 2 seconds is, I mean, in some instances, not that massive, but in this case, it's going to slot our Judgments right into our 8-6-8 rotation, so you definitely want to pick this up. Otherwise, it's going to be throwing your rotation off just a little bit. So no reason not to pick this up. Heart of the Crusader. In addition to the normal effect, your Judgment spells will also increase the critical strike chance of all attacks made against that target by an additional 3%. This is across the board. So, put up your Judgments, and your rate is instantly doing 3% more damage. Again, this is another talent, just like Improved Devotion Aura, which I don't believe it's going to stack. So, if you have a Rep Pally bringing in Heart of the Crusader, there's probably no reason for you to pick this up. Next up, Improved Blessing of Might. Increase the attack power bonus of your Blessing of Might by an additional 25%. Again, another talent that you're not going to be bringing if you have a Rep Paladin bringing it. So this is what I mean by a lot of variable points when it comes to Retribution. Conviction just increases our chance to crit with all spells and attacks by 2%. This is just more of a threat talent if you want to call it that. Seal of Command, I do pick it up. I do pick it up just for the ease of the spec and for me not to really like go back and respec or have a reason to use my second dual spec for a variation on Prot. Seal of Command just makes it so we hit an additional target when we have Seal of Command up. This only affects spells that are single target. So it's only really two spells that come to mind. Judgments, which only heal one target. So this makes it into an AoE. It strikes two additional targets. I do believe I said it one. It actually strikes two additional targets, so three targets total. So now your judgments are hitting three. Also, another spell that hits only one is your Shield of Righteousness. So now your Shield of the Righteousness and your Judgments are hitting three. This is really only good for just trash packs. So when you're going against a main boss, you're not gonna be using Seal of Command. There's no reason for you to be using Seal of Command on a boss. Maybe, maybe on a boss like I believe Utgard Keep, whereas there's the two bosses you gotta you gotta attack at the same time and kill them at the same time. This is pretty good to keeping a threat on both. There's another boss that follows after that spawns a bunch of skeletons. That's also pretty good for keeping a threat on those, but for the most part your consecration is going to be doing plenty. You also have a lot of other attacks including Hammer of the Righteous that already do some AoE damage. So more situational, not as many situations that you're actually going to be using this on, but if you're going to be doing a lot of dungeons, then go ahead and pick it up. Pursuit of Justice just reduces duration of all disarm effects by 15% and increases the movement and mounted speed by 15%. 15% movement speed is great. This is also it doesn't just affect mounted, it increases your base movement speed. So when you need to avoid something on the ground that's going to be placed on the ground by some boss, you need to avoid a mechanic or anything like that, you're gonna love that 15%. Plus, I do believe it's faster than anything that we can get as a boot enchant. And then instead you can get a boot enchant that gives you a lot more stamina than, let's say, something that increases your stamina and your mobility. So definitely going to be picking up Pursuit of Justice. Crusade increases all damage caused by 3% and all damage caused against humanoids, demons, undead, and elementals by an additional 3%. So a total of 6% against humanoids, demons, undead, and elementals. So basically everything that you're gonna be going up against in Wrath, it's gonna be one or the other. It's gonna be a humanoid. If it's not a humanoid, it's probably gonna be an undead. The only thing that not covered here is dragons. We do go into Obsidian Sanctum, which there's gonna be a few dragons right there. This is not affected by that. Um, the next talent that I do want to cover is Sanctity of Battle. Increases your chance to critically hit with all spells and attacks by 1%, and increases the damage caused by Exorcism and Crusader Strike by a total of it's 15% at 3 out of 3, 5% for each talent. No reason to pick this up because we don't have Crusader Strike. The only reason you're ever gonna pick this up for the most part is when you're going into Naxxramas. And it's only gonna be affected for one spell, our Exorcism. It's an okay spell. If we're going against undead bosses, it'll help you do a bit of damage to possibly get the kill. Besides that, we're not going to be using it in Ulduar. We're not going to be using it much in Trial of the Champion or Trial of the Grand Crusader. Some places where you can use it in dungeons, but for the most part, you can use it for phase one, basically Naxxramas. One out of the biggest, I mean, it's 1 out of 3 raids, but it's gonna be the biggest raid. So there might be reason to pick it up just for one spell. The chance to critically hit, it's basically conviction. So if you're gonna be putting into Sanctity of Battle for crit, you might as well just go into conviction. Additionally, the way I would do it if you're going into Naxxramas is actually move the talents from conviction over to Sanctity of Battle. That way we still get the 2%, and we get the benefit of 10% increase to Exorcism. But for the most part, we don't have Crusader Strike, so this really only benefits Rep Paladin the most. They could take full advantage of this. Additionally, if for some reason you don't have a Warlock, which I pity you, if you don't have a Warlock, you can move those 2 talent points into Vindication, which reduces the target's attack power by 574. This is brought by a Warlock's Curse of Weakness. So I do believe even Curse of Weakness is going to be a lot better. So the only reason you would pick up Vindication is if you don't have a Warlock or a Red Pally that is bringing this. Um, for the most part, hopefully you have a Warlock putting up Curse of Weakness. If you don't, then yeah, sure, go get Vindication. Another two points that we can pick up instead of Conviction, which is maybe where I would go. It's Judgment of the Just, which reduces melee attack speed by 20%. I can't off the bat think of something that reduces melee attack speed. I'm pretty sure there's something in Wrath of the Lich King that brings a melee attack speed reduction. Maybe I might know. I might just put it like right there, just what actually does it. So other than that, put it into Conviction, or if you're going into next round miss, go into Sanctity of Battle just for just the one spell buff. But for the most part, this is what it's going to be looking like for the most of Wrath of the Lich King. Only just a couple that I covered that might be variable depending on whether or not you're going to have a Rep Paladin on the list in your raid group. And then let's cover major glyphs. Major glyphs are the thing that are just, it's not going to change. To be honest, it's not really going to change much. We pick up Divine Plea because it gives us 3% reduced damage from all sources. We do have something different going on with Divine Plea. Divine Plea gives us 25% of our mana over 15 seconds. Now it says 1 minute cooldown. However, Guarded by the Light has a chance when we hit an enemy to reset the cooldown. So it's gonna be up pretty much constantly. We're not gonna be pressing. We're not gonna be spamming that button over and over and over again. We're pretty much gonna be getting that buff every 15 seconds. But not only so we can get the 3% damage reduction from all sources, but as well as the mana back. This is why I pretty much don't go into Spiritual Attunement, because every 15 seconds we're going to be getting 25% of our mana back, and another reason not to go into Benediction. Really, the only thing I could think of is if you're leveling. Maybe you want to go into Benediction, maybe you want to go 2 out of 2 into Spiritual Attunement, but a level cap Guarded by the Light is gonna be covering you. You're gonna have so much mana from Divine Plea. It's over here, 25% of your mana over 15 seconds. You can just it's just gonna be constantly resetting. So don't even worry about that 1 minute cooldown and the 3%. Next glyph we're gonna be picking up is Glyph of the Righteous Defense. This is pretty much just a hit talent or a hit glyph. It makes it better by 8%. There's a chance for it to work successfully by 8%. The wording is a little weird there, but it's pretty much 8% hit for our Righteous Defense and our Hand of Reckoning. We do get Hand of Reckoning in Wrath, which is going to be our taunt in TBC and in the past in a Vanilla Classic. We didn't have a direct taunt. We can macro Righteous Defense to be kind of a target of target, which would be like a faux taunt. This just makes it better so it doesn't miss. The next glyph that we can pick up is Glyph of Seal of Vengeance, which gives us more expertise. Same reason why we picked up expertise over here in our talents on combat expertise is the same reason we're going to be using this glyph. Glyph of Seal of Vengeance is going to be our go-to glyph for pretty much all situations, especially if you don't pick up Seal of Command for trash packs or like smaller trash packs. Glyph of Seal of Vengeance or Corruption, depending whether you're Alliance or Horde, you're pretty much going to be having it all the time. So you're also going to be having that 10 expertise active all the time. There's a couple different glyphs that you can swap that out. Let's just say you have a ton of expertise, and it's just giving you more expertise, or you're like above expertise cap, and you want to bring it down for some reason from your talents rather from your gear, um, you could pick up something like Shield of Righteousness, which reduces the mana cost of Shield of Righteousness by 80%. Not worth it. Not really worth it. There's also Seal of Command, which you gain 8% of your base mana each time you use a judgment. Also, really not worth it. Glyph of Hammer of Righteous, your Hammer of Righteous hits one additional target. Maybe worth it if you have way too much expertise and you just can't swap a piece of gear. So instead of using instead of swapping a gear that you don't have or you don't have a good replacement for, you just replace the Glyph of Vengeance with Glyph of Hammer of the Righteous. Really, only the one that I can actually actively think of about picking it up. There's also Glyph of Avenger Shield, which hits 2 fewer targets but 100% more damage. Maybe if for some reason you have 2 prop paladins in your raid and you have your main prop pally and you're just off tank, then maybe pick up Avenger Shield. Maybe you have your AoE tank prop pally and your single target prop pally. So maybe they're gonna be bringing this up, but for the most part, this is just gonna be staying exactly how it is here through all of Wrath. Minor glyphs are even worse. There's actually just these 3 options. Sense Undead makes it so you do 1% more damage when your Sense Undead ability is active. This is great again for Naxxramas in ICC, where everything is basically undead. Next up, Glyph of Lay on Hands is just a reduction of 5 minutes to your Lay on Hands spell. And Glyph of Blessing of Kings reduces the mana cost of your Blessing of Kings and Greater Blessing of Kings by 50%. The other 3 options that we have for minor glyphs for paladins in general are Glyph of Blessing of Might, Wisdom, and Glyph of the Wise. Glyph of the Wise reduces the mana cost of your Seal of Wisdom spell by 50%. We're going to be using Seal of Vengeance, so this is already useless. Glyph of Blessing of Wisdom and also Blessing of Might. These 2 just increase the duration of your Might and Wisdom by 20 minutes, only when cast on yourself. So no reason to pick those up because you're not going to be using Glyph of Blessing of Might or Wisdom yourself. You're either going to be putting up Sanctuary or you're going to be putting up Kings. So that's why we pick up Blessing of the Kings, because it reduces the mana cost by 50%. So you use less mana overall when buffing. And as well, I do believe now when in Wrath, when you cast Greater Blessing of Kings, it's the whole raid. So it just makes it a fair amount cheaper. So now we're going to be covering our 8-6-8 rotation. We call it 8-6-8 rotation because it's based on our cooldowns for our spells. The vast majority of spells that we use as a prop paladin are either going to have an 8-second cooldown or a 6-second cooldown. This is, of course, with the exception of judgments, but that's why we picked up the 2 points into improved judgments, which are also going to bring it down into our 8-second slot, which is going to be working out a lot better. If we didn't pick up that talent, it's going to be coming in later and later and later and later. So that's why we pick up that talent. First off, our opener, it's pretty simple. We just make sure that we have either Seal of Command if it's going to be a multi-target scenario. That's if you chose to talent into it. If not, Seal of Vengeance for any single target scenario or going against bosses. Next up, as you're about to pull, pop Avenging Wrath for increased damage. In Wrath of the Lich King, it increases not only our damage but our healing as well. So if you're a Holy Paladin, you might even want to do this at the start. There's going to be a lot of incoming heavy damage. Use your Divine Plea. That way we already have our mana coming in. You're going to be capped in mana, but we're going to be on the pull, going to be using mana, and we're already going to be getting mana back, as well as our 3% damage reduction. Again, this is going to be refreshed constantly by Guard of the Light. So after Divine Plea, we're going to be using Sacred Shield, which is going to be absorbing 500 damage. This is basically like a little bubble that we put ourselves. And then, of course, we pull with our Avenger's Shield. So after our opener, we're going to be going into our 8-6-8 rotation, starting off with Holy Shield having an 8-second cooldown and providing us with 30% more block. Then using Hammer of the Righteous, 6-second cooldown. Even though it hits multiple targets, we're still going to be using it against single target bosses and encounters. Also, as well with Consecration, which has an 8-second cooldown, Then after that, we're going to be using Shield of the Righteousness with a 6-second cooldown. And finally, with our Judgment of the Wisdom, with, if you remember, with Improved Judgments, has an 8-second cooldown. After that, we rinse and repeat as things come off cooldown. First off, it's probably going to be something like Hammer of the Righteousness, followed by Holy Shield, followed by Shield of Righteousness, followed by Consecration, and so on and so forth until the boss is dead. Overall, super simple. Besides our rotation, the only thing that we're going to have to worry about is going to be our defensive cooldowns, such as Divine Plea, Divine Protection, Lay on Hands, Divine Sacrifice when huge damage is incoming, and of course our Ardent Defender, which is a proc. So that's pretty much it for Prot Paladin in Wrath of the Lich King. I'll cover more information as phases go by. Any other questions that you might have, just feel free to comment down below. Like the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves and each other, and have a good one.